meet again at last. The circle is now complete.
What's the world coming to?
Well, you got a problem with what I did, Anthony?
No. Hey, no.
Fucking rat anyways. Whole family's all rats. Would have grew up to be a rat.
Stupid bastard. I can't fucking believe it.
Gee, I'm real sorry your mom blew up, Ricky.
Now you're gonna dig the fucking thing. You're gonna dig the hole. You're gonna do it. I got no fucking line. You're gonna do it.
Fuck yes, I'll take the fucking hole. I don't give a fuck.
I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was pure and simple evil.
Jesus Christ. Mister, you okay in there?
Let's visit the coffees around here someplace.
Have you any idea what the cost of your actions is? What their effect might be? Or you to give them hope? What do you give them? We give them happiness. And they give us authority. Groovy.
Welcome everybody to the Cinephellas Podcast. It's August 22nd, 2017. This is Chris coming to you live from the library on behalf of Cinephellas.com, the only place for all your cinephilic needs. Alright, before we dive into today's episode, I want to spend a little time shining a light on an organization very close to my heart, Women Aware of Middlesex County, New Jersey. Now, as many of you know, my mother was a victim of domestic abuse at the hands of my biological father. I saw firsthand how that kind of abuse from an intimate partner wreaks havoc on the mind, the heart, and the soul. Of course, domestic abuse is not always directed from a man toward a woman or toward children, but it's disproportionately so that men are the aggressors. The result is often that the women and children that suffer this abuse have no place to live, no steady incomes, and no clue how to start over. Well, that's when organizations like Women Aware step in. The goal of Women Aware is to empower these individuals. For over 3 decades, it's concentrated on providing sufferers of domestic violence with practical skills, offering intensive case management, including safety planning, counseling, housing assistance, life skills, parenting education, creative arts therapy for children, advocacy, health organization, and several other services. Women Aware also provide crisis management programs, emergency housing, legal advice, community education, support groups, and other programs for children. Now, one thing that really impressed me when I first heard of this organization some years ago was a program that they ran for male aggressors that were serious about changing their behavior. The organization opened its heart to guys that were man enough to admit that they made mistakes and they wanted to be better partners, better fathers. That's admirable. But what's the best part? Well, in this trying time, Women Aware understands that the last thing anybody wants to be thinking about is money and language barriers. So all the services are provided free of charge and confidential, also in English and Spanish. If you're out there feeling alone, give them a call on their 24-hour hotline at 732-249-4504. You can also learn more about them by visiting womenaware.net. But if you're not in the Middlesex County, New Jersey area, just know that there are organizations out there to help. So don't be afraid to reach out. Okay, let's get to the show. On today's episode of the Cinephellas Podcast, I'm chatting with Angelic Zambrana about her role in the film Bushwick. It hits theaters and video on demand this Friday, August 25th. Bushwick is the horrifying story about a present-day civil war in which several southern states decide to secede from the U.S. A group of mercenaries from Texas invades the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, and martial law is declared. Stoop, played by Dave Bautista, who you know from Guardians of the Galaxy and Enter the Warrior's Gate, as well as Lucy, played by Brittany Snow, who you know from the Pitch Perfect series, among several other things. They have to pick up Lucy's sister, Belinda, who is played by Angelique, and they have to escape the war zone with their lives. That is their mission. Belinda's role is really interesting. It's a significant role in helping Lucy transform into a caretaker, but Belinda is also a stand-in for America in many ways in this film. Or I should say the American citizen specifically. So when we first meet Belinda, she's trapped in a drug-induced haze inside her apartment. She has no idea about the chaos going on outside her window. At first, Belinda remains defiant, unwilling to accept that her world is falling apart, but she quickly learns that there's no use in this denial. She transforms that bitterness into self-empowerment, and that seamless transition is made possible by Angelique's ability to find the authentic struggle in Belinda's journey. Now that's something that Angelique and I talk about, and she tells me about how she tries to find that really authentic pain and that authentic experience in all of her characters and turn them into strength. We also talk about how Angelique's early life growing up in New York and having a fantastic artistic family helped her prepare for a career in the arts, and the insight that she developed by learning from the many characters that she came across in the city. It was that study of sorts that helped her identify with their hardships, but also kind of identify with their personalities and make decisions based on what their characters would do in certain situations. We spent a good portion of our time together also chatting about how the social unrest in Bushwick took on a new relevance after the white supremacist-driven domestic terrorism in Charlottesville, Virginia on August 12th of this year. Moreover, we talked about how the power of film to help us learn from one another can ameliorate hatred and just bring us closer together. So I don't want to say too much more. I think that the conversation is very illuminating. I really enjoyed it. I think you will too. So sit back and listen to my conversation with the brilliant and talented Angelic Zambrana. I'll see you on the other side. Hello?
Hi, is this Chris?
Hey, yeah, how are you?
Hi, good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Great. I have Angelique on the other line when you're ready.
Okay, yeah, go ahead whenever you're set.
Cool. Great, we have 15 minutes.
Cool.
Okay, Angelique, you're on with Chris. Okay, great.
Hey, Angelique, how are you?
I'm good. Hello, Chris.
It's great to hear from you. Thanks for taking some time out of your day to talk.
Of course.
Cool. So, you're from the New York area, right?
Yes, I'm from Queens, Astoria.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, so not too far away.
Oh, what part of New Jersey you grew up? I have a lot of family that lives there.
Oh, cool. So I'm a little bit north of New Brunswick, so technically Central Jersey, but we always thought of it more as North Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, it's like that weird divide.
What was the name of your neighborhood?
Well, the town itself is South River. It's right outside New Brunswick.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right by Rutgers.
Ah, all right.
Mm-hmm.
I have family that lives in like Homedale and Towns River and what's the place Bon Jovi was from? Red Bank.
Yeah, Red Bank.
A couple of places in Jersey.
Yeah, Red Bank, and then he grew up actually as a kid in Sayreville, which is right next to my town. So everybody thinks that's very impressive, but you know, it is what it is.
Oh.
So I wanted to ask you, you know, I think it's always really interesting to talk to artists about how New York influenced their approach to art. So how did that experience growing up in New York inspire you to be an artist?
How did the experience growing up in New York? Say that again.
How did your experience growing up in New York influence your desire to become an artist?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I just want to make sure because I put you on speaker.
Cool.
Well, I grew up in a family that I had in a musical family with my father and my mother. We're decorating the house every month.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was a kid, my friends used to be like, "What color is your living room today?" Like joking making fun of me. But and there's so much stimulation in New York City. You go up in Times Square, you have all these people coming from all over the world to go see Broadway. You have Times Square, then you have graffiti everywhere. It's just, everyone's so close and tight on top of each other. And then, of course, you have all the different cultures. I grew up in a Greek neighborhood. So there's so much stimulation and inspiration around you, and it's not in the far reach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really interesting
Also, as an actor, you have so much real characters and raw, and you have homeless people on the train. You also have a lot of mentally ill people. I think we have the highest rate of mentally ill people per capita in one type of space in the world. So you have that. Then you just have a huge mix of people in one tight space. So it's such a great character study.
Yeah, it's right. It's a really interesting mix of like highbrow culture, lowbrow culture, street life, just everything that you could imagine just in a tight little space.
So many worlds. I remember being a hostess one time in this restaurant that was like an Upper East Side or Upper West Side? I can't even remember. Upper East Side, yes. And off Park Avenue, and it was a lot of like conservative, like, the 1%. And I was like, wow, this is like a whole different world. Like, they dress differently, just the way that, everything's so different. It's amazing. It's all in one little town. I love New York for that.
Yeah, right. It's very different than in LA, where everything seems very segmented.
Yeah, LA is very, New York used to be like that, but that's more so, I guess people felt safer on their own. But LA is kind of like that as a default because of the geography. I used to live in an Armenian neighborhood, and yeah, I liked that it was an Armenian neighborhood. Somehow it just reminded me of being in New York, being in an ethnic neighborhood. But yeah, LA is segregated that way. Like, you could find yourself not around any person of color, or you can find yourself the only non-person of color in LA. It depends where you are,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm interested to see how those themes that you're discussing play themselves out in your characters, right? Because, and I'm thinking here of your role in Dean, the pastor, and now in Bushwick. There's sort of this search in all of these films to find meaning and redemption in a world that's chaos around you. And I was wondering, did any of your personal experiences lead you to look for that type of role and that type of journey for your characters?
Oh, well, thank you. Well, you're saying if redemption is the thing that made me look for that. I think maybe it's something I found in them, not that I was looking for it. I think I found something in them that made me click. Redemption for me, I know that in a chaotic world, trying to find yourself, maybe that may have been something I connected to, but I connected to the feeling of guilt for the role in the pastor, and I think the redemption is the thing that I use, as their arc to make them more human, more realistic. So a lot of times I get these characters that they, at first on paper, may seem so crazy, and like, how do I make this real? And it's always some kind of challenge to me. And, I do that through the arc, and I do that through, what can I do to make this person relatable to other people? So for the pastor, it was like a journey of guilt that the characters took from becoming a lost girl, who, didn't really have any guidance, and she fell into a gang. Her brother was killed, and then she went and became more lost in how she processed the guilt and how she processed it, who she blamed.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Bushwick, it was the character kind of has like a political shock of coming of age or awareness where she's very self-indulgent emotionally and in her own world, and she gets thrown into this war where, you know, the only thing that matters is family ever to her also, but she's thrown into this war, and then she's, you know, having to deal with everything that's been going on in the country that she hasn't really tuned into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because your character, Belinda, is really important in kind of Lucy's journey of becoming this caretaker and her learning about sacrifice. But without giving too much away, what do you think, besides what you just said, what do you think Belinda learns in that process about family and about reconnecting with society?
Yeah, I always felt Belinda represented one of those people who didn't really tune into, like I just said, didn't really tune into politics. You know, they didn't really, they didn't really read CNN. They didn't really care about what was going on in the TV because they believe that they're American and we're always going to be safe here. Nothing really bad happens here. Wars don't take place here like they do, in other countries in the Middle East and so on. Mm-hmm. So I think she then gets shaken up from being thrown into the war because she's a very emotionally unstable person. She's not crazy. She's just, had trauma. She's had trauma, so she's very sensitive to emotional stimulation, and she's very extreme. Mm-hmm. So, she's thrown into this war, and then you're forced to know what's the one thing that's important, not your breakup, not your emotional life, not what's going on that's making you have to go out and party and drink and cover it up all the time. It's your family.
Mm-hmm. And you bring
trying to survive and talk about that.
Yeah, wow, that's really fascinating. And in that point, there's also the connection to this idea of, obviously, the new Civil War, right? This idea that the certain states are seceding from the United States, and that's causing this war, this martial law. And it's really interesting. I was thinking as I was watching this, I watched it twice, and I was thinking, I watched it once. Yeah, I really loved the film. And I watched it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I always want to ask you questions now.
Sure, yeah, that would be great. Because, I watched it once before the events in Charlottesville and then once after.
Yeah.
And it was eerie watching it the second time because, you brought up that point of like, oh, we don't have this kind of strife in the United States, but then it's seemingly becoming more and more realistic. And I was wondering how your perception of the film and especially your character changed, if at all, with the real life events that are going on right now.
You're asking if my character changed at all, or my point of view of the movie?
Well, both, right? So your point of view of, because a lot of times films like this, I often find are cathartic in the sense that they explore fear and issues that could happen. But now, especially with what we saw in Charlottesville, it's almost as if a mirror image, right? Like,
I know. I used to have this little worry in my mind, in my head, because the concept for this movie was thought of years before, and we shot the film in the end of 2015, before the new election, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So, for me, I always wondered, as time went on, as we were getting closer to the release, oh my God, are they going to release this movie? Are they going to allow this? Is this movie going to be banned, or what's going to happen? Because we were such on the verge of something, and I still feel like we're on the verge of something really cathartic happening here in the United States, and I'm fearful as a citizen myself. And when I had the tickers on the CNN tickers on my phone, and when I saw it was a title, an article that said United States in division, United States in division over Charlottesville, events in Charlottesville. And I was like, whoa. I almost could have mistaken it for, a review of the movie if I didn't see Charlottesville. And I got super, my heart started to race. Mm-hmm. Because I thought, oh my God, this is like happening. This is happening before my eyes. And the only thing I can hope is that people going to see the movie and, take it in as a cautionary tale that, we have a lot of people who feel like they have a person in office that they don't agree with, that they're on odds with. But the last thing we need to be at odds with is with each other here in the United States as citizens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like there's so much going on. The last thing you want to have to worry about in the world is a battle of civil rights. But just these are things that were happening in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and we're still fighting this now. It's kind of sad and it's crazy and it's scary. And that there are some themes in the film that they kind of touch upon that, white supremacy and et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking the other day about my friend's brother just had a baby, right? So she has a new niece, and I was thinking about that baby's going to grow up in a climate where all this kind of violence and negativity just seems completely normal. And that's very concerning.
It's sad. Yeah, it's sad. You walk around and you get your vegan green tea, coconut, matcha, latte, right? and then you are thinking, oh, I'm now going over to my organic laundromat and all these amazing things that we have, and the beautiful weather and this beautiful world. And the thought on your mind is thinking that, what is it going to be like even next year? And you think, all these kids born, like, are they going to have the same beautiful world that we had growing up? Not to say it was perfect, but we had it better than a lot of other countries in the world growing up here in the United States. And you wonder, like, what's going to happen to the kids? What is this country going to be like even next year? Like, we don't even know what's going to happen in, like, a matter of, like, 5 months here.
Yeah, and
so it's like, almost kind of, like, fear for them because you wonder... You always want to fear for them because you wonder what's the world that they're being born into. It's not ours. It's not what we knew. Things drastically changed. If you were a millennial to like the next generation after that, they have a totally different mindset. They grew up with cell phones. They grew up with the internet at their reach and Wikipedia and autocorrect, and they, the world has changed so drastically as it naturally would.
Yeah, and especially look at the past 15 years or so and the acceleration due to technology. It's like most of the time little things will happen over a generation, but yet we've seen things happen in the past 15 years in our lifetime that people thought were unimaginable.
Yeah, I still have to pinch myself. I don't know, maybe I'm an old soul. But even the fact that you can take a plane and be in the other side of the planet in like 11 hours is amazing, and that'll just keep improving itself. Technology also has helped the world too with catching. The camera phones really have helped the world as well in a way. It's like it's like a double negative. There are horrible things people do with those camera phones, and then there are things people do to save lives and help people be proclaimed innocent and help incriminate people who otherwise would have gotten away with certain things.
So what advice would you give to a performer that's kind of coming up right now and they're in this negative climate and they want to use their art to generate conversations and be very thoughtful? Do you have any advice that you would give them?
I think that art has been a reflection of a time, and I just think overall, if you just become a very honest artist and a very honest person, and you come from your place of truth, then it's going to resonate. It's going to resonate. Don't try to push something. Like, always start from a place of truth, and that will resonate no matter what language a person speaks when they're watching it. They'll feel it. They'll feel you if you come from a place of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And have some resilience and hang in there.
Mm-hmm.
Hang in there because you're going to get a lot of no's before you get any yeses, and you just have to really feel like this is something that you can't breathe without, and you go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really a blessing when you find that passion because even the pain is helping you live.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I was just saying that, that passion, even when you have that passion, when you believe in what you're doing, even the painful moments are positive.
Yes, because you have somewhat not an agenda, but you have something you believe in that's bigger than any of the no's and any of the things that are going to rock you. Like I mean, it hasn't been easy for me, and I'm still chucking away and chipping away. But I know what I want to do, and I know the kind of actor that I want to be. So I'm willing to take all those jabs and take all the arrows, and I'm willing to keep doing that because I want to say something. I want to keep being a part of things that say something, and I'm lucky to have done that at least 2 or 3 times. With Precious, and now with Bushwick, and Half a Baby, and a couple other movies. Like it's very important to say something and reach people with art. That's why I said you start from a place of truth.
Wow.
Sorry, we're just about out of time.
Oh, cool! Wow, that went really fast. I really.
Yeah, it did.
Wow, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing those ideas, and I hope that we can talk again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for wanting to talk with me and watching Bushwick twice.
Sure. Yeah, and then if ever there is a time when you can ask me questions, I will be all for that as well.
What was that?
If ever you do want to ask me some questions about the film, I'll be all for that as well.
Oh yeah, cool, man. Thanks.
All right, great. So have a great day and good luck with everything.
You too. Thank you, Chris.
All
Thanks,
right.
Chris.
Bye. So what'd you think? Angelique is a brilliant and inspiring person. She's sensitive to a depth of experience that, let's face it, most of us will only dream about sharing. It was a true privilege chatting with her. And I hope she gave you some hope for our shared future. But even if that hope comes one script at a time or one performance at a time, that's growth, right? We still have to look at that as a positive advancement. You can see Angelique in Bushwick, co-directed by Carrie Murnion and Jonathan Millot, and co-written by Nick DeMasi and Graham Resnick when it hits theaters and video on demand this Friday, August 25th. And don't forget to check out the soundtrack by A$AP Rock. You can find an article to a Pitchfork review of that soundtrack that I'll be posting along with this podcast. And what else? Oh, there are so many things to say, but I want to put a nice little bow on it right there and be out. All right, Cinepheliacs, Cinemaniacs. That's a good one too, Cinemaniacs. That's it for this week. Remember to share a movie with someone you love. This is Chris, and I will see you next time.